Alright, so this is actually a video I made years ago. About a year after the release of Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda. This video is kind of not something I'm super crazy proud of. I mean, I'm definitely proud of it. I wouldn't be re-uploading it if I wasn't at least somewhat happy with it. I had a lot of good thoughts that I still agree with. I was just a lot angrier. A lot more dirty jokes. I don't know, it just seems like the writing was kind of juvenile, but I think it's a pretty good critique on the game. But I'm thinking about branching out with my content. I guess I kind of just realized that I really just do this as a hobby. I mean, I have less than 100 subs. Who cares what kind of content I make? I want to make what I want to make. And I don't want to shoehorn myself into just a specific type of content. I'm just going to do whatever I want. So, here's my review from like 3 or 4 years ago on Mass Effect Andromeda. What happened? Where did we go wrong? Was there ever any hope?
Sorry, my face is tired. The cat have been quiet for too long. Sorry, my face is tired. Sorry, my face is tired. Sorry, my face is tired. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with. The cat have been quiet for too long. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with.
Okay, what the f***, BioWare? Alright, maybe not entirely BioWare. EA is definitely a factor here. And there's probably a lot of talent and heart in the group that actually developed this game, but EA keeps showing up like a bad dominatrix who just doesn't understand what a safe word actually is. Actually, EA is more like an abusive foster parent, whose kids are either bullies that try to, swindle your kids out of their lunch money, or they mysteriously go missing. Oh, well, this video isn't here for me to shit on EA, as much as they completely deserve it. This video is to talk about the travesty that was Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, before I really get into this discussion, I really want to say, I don't want to demean or belittle the people behind this game. I think when reviewing a AAA game like this, people don't stop and think about just how much work and time and money and effort goes into these kind of, games. I think there's a lot of talent on the BioWare team, and they were just severely rushed by EA, and with a combination of piss-poor management within BioWare Montreal, it just led to the death of quality, and it just killed this game. Regardless of talent, it's hard to come back from this. So I don't really want to attack or directly state that they were a group of talentless buffoons, but still, that being said, what the f*** is this shit? I know it's been a year since the release of Andromeda, but I'm still completely overwhelmed at the complete disregard for what the heart of Mass Effect really is. I'm not just gonna say that without supporting or quantifying it. That's what this long-ass video is for. Just look at how long it is. I have a lot to say. I wrote a real script, like 4,000 words. Normally I write like half a script when my ADHD kicks in, and then I get excited about another video, and then, the current script evolves into just bullet points. But no, I had too much to say. So, when Andromeda was first announced in 2015, I definitely had to go and change my pants. I really care about this franchise. I fell deeply into the hype, I'll admit. But by the time I had bought the game, my hype had died. Now, I bought Mass Effect Andromeda in December of 2017, and I paid $14 for it. I paid for a AAA game, a $60 title within the same year of release. I paid $14. That should have been my biggest sign. But I figured everyone was just being a bunch of negative Nancys. There are plenty of games that are regarded as absolute garbage, but I have fun with them. I have shit taste. Now, I can see glaring flaws in these games, but I generally have fun with most games. I didn't beat this game until June of 2018 for the express purpose of making this video. It took me 7 months to complete this. This isn't coming from someone who struggles getting through these games, or most games in general, especially Mass Effect. I've played through the original trilogy anywhere from 6 to 9 times, playing the first the fewest and the second the most. The original trilogy has a major replayability factor for me. I could barely play through this one the first time, let alone replay it. Oh, and I just want to mention that I played through it again so I could get a more fleshed out critique for this video. I had a little bit more fun with it the second time, but not worth talking about. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad game, but it's definitely a bad Mass Effect game. I think it was trapped between wanting to make a game that the fans would love, while still being approachable to newcomers to the series. The lore and world of Mass Effect is deep and rich, and most likely fairly intimidating to someone interested into jumping in this late in the series. I mean, look at the codex of the original series. Imagine being new to this. Honestly, that was what was so exciting about the idea of venturing into the Andromeda galaxy. New species, new culture, new everything. We get to be a sort of pioneer in uncharted worlds. All very good on paper, but it really flopped in execution. Now, I'm not saying the original 3 were perfect. They can be a little... Enemies everywhere! Enemies everywhere! But they were solid experiences, and I just can't say the same for Mass Effect Andromeda. And when looking at the criticisms, I see so many critics and reviewers just harp on the animations, the voice acting, and yeah, both of those are pretty shit. What Mass Effect Andromeda brought us, that was just unacceptable. But groundbreaking graphics does not make Mass Effect what it is. When I play the old games, they're chock full of the weirdest, stiffest animations I've ever seen. Without even going back and playing it, I can distinctly remember Liara's weird squinty eye, or the Shepherd dance, or the weird drinking animations. The list goes on and on. No, what makes this game a success is its writing, its story, and its characters, all of which were not done well in this game. In doing research for this game, I decided to look up some people who actually enjoyed the game, and I wanted to see what they had to say about it. First, I went to the Mass Effect Andromeda subreddit, and that was unproductive to say the least. So many posts start with, "To the haters," and I have officially completely lost faith in reviewers and Reddit users. Doesn't that seem a little hyperbolic? Come on now, too many whiners here. I don't give a flying fuck about animations or dialogue. I think that shit can be looked over in any game. I'm just here to blow shit up and shoot shit. I'm sorry, I hold BioWare to a standard where I expect exciting gameplay and a well-done story. Maybe it's just me. Afterwards, I went to the regular Mass Effect subreddit, and I found some more thought-out comments, I'll say. Some of these comments ended up mirroring my own thoughts, but there were quite a few that didn't. Firstly, as a positive comment, this game is gorgeous. I can remember multiple points throughout my playthrough where I actually stopped and looked around. I never did that in the old game because, to be fair, they were a little ugly. I mean, I probably thought that because, well, by the time I played the originals, all 3 were out, and I was already used to higher, better graphics and better level design, so when I played the original game, it was eh. And I'm not just talking about graphically when I say that the Andromeda worlds are beautiful. I'm talking compositionally. Colors, everything about it. It's just a lot better designed. The worlds of the original were so barren and empty. Driving around in the Mako absolutely killed me, and I didn't go through nearly as much emotional pain when I was in the Nomad. Oh, another thing that shines in the game is the actual gameplay. Shepard, in the older games, kind of moved around like a sack of potatoes with little baby legs. And the combat in Andromeda is so much more refined, it's intuitive, the powers feel satisfying and dynamic. I actually had fun with some of the gunfights in this game, unlike in the original 3, where they were more means to an end. I was just more I need to get to this other place, and hey, there are these people in the way. I also think that some of the character interactions are some of the best. Seeing these characters everywhere throughout the ship, hearing their banter, it was all wonderful.
You hung out with a lot of Asari. You never...
I never. Their friendship was enough.
Asari, though? Sorry, babe. You're the best. I love you. Who needs a blue tentacle head?
So, did I hear that right back there? You table danced in Omega?
That was one job. One. Somehow it ended up being me watching the floor and providing distraction.
Dancing's one of your many talents, then.
Shit, no. I tripped over myself 30 seconds in, accidentally ripped out a Volus's breather trying to break my fall.
You sure take up a lot of space back here. Your thighs are massive.
Great. Now we're both uncomfortable.
It gave so much life to the characters and life to the ship. And this was done very well in 3, but I think it was done even better here. I remember stopping in the Nomad to hear the dialogue between the crew instead of activating the next quest location. I wish this kind of writing went into the actual plot points because it really made these characters likable. But speaking of the characters, I think it's about time to get into the negatives of the game. Characters are what I consider the most important aspect of a Mass Effect game. Now, these characters aren't really bad characters. If anything, I quite like them. I find PB pretty annoying, but that doesn't make her a bad character. I found May from Night in the Woods very annoying, but she is very well written. That kind of character just doesn't mesh well with me. The Mass Effect Andromeda characters are all fairly fleshed out with their own believable wants and needs. It's just that they feel so unneeded. What purpose are they serving in the story? I can't think of anything that would be changed if we switched out the characters or even got rid of them entirely. The characters of Mass Effect 1 were so integral to the plot. Everybody was on the mission with you with a purpose. In Mass Effect 2, they were dynamic, engaging, with compelling backstories and struggles. Mass Effect 2 was much more character-focused, and I think that's a large part of why it was hailed as the best among many of the fans in the series. While characters in the first game were more just representation of their race. They were kind of stereotypical Krogan, stereotypical Asari, stereotypical Turian. That's kind of all they were. And they became fleshed out as the games continued on. And they became more individuals. The third game was less about introducing or fleshing out characters and more about tying up loose ends. With this game, without being necessary, it just kind of feels like your crew just happens to be people that are just tagging along. I just realized something damning about the characters. They never actually disagree with you. Not in any real sense of the word, at least. But that's besides the point. We all know what we're here for. This game is weaponized waifuism at its core. Or husbandoism, if you're into that weird shit. A lot of people think that the romance options in this game aren't as good, but I don't really think that's the case. I think what made the other romance options so compelling was the amount of time we got to spend with each one. Surprise, surprise! Relationships with characters we only spent one game with feel shallower than the ones we spent a whole trilogy with. I wasn't too annoyed with the relationships. With a little bit of love and care and a little bit more time, I think these could be some top-tier waifus. Now, the only character as important as your waifu is Ryder. You know, the main character. In my opinion, Ryder's got the personality of a harem anime protagonist. They're more reactionary than anything else. Shepard had a more solidified personality, regardless of whether you chose Paragon or Renegade. They saw an obstacle, they didn't pole vault over it, they didn't move around it, they would toss that pole aside and just knock the wall right out of their way. Paragon and Renegade only determined whether someone got hit with a pole on the way. Ryder, on the other hand, is just so vague. I don't need another character like Shepard. As much as I love the guy, Lord knows we have enough stoic badasses. I just want Ryder to have a recognizable personality. Also, what even is a Pathfinder? Like, some kind of leader, a scientist, an explorer? It's not super clear to me, and it's a title you can apparently just give to someone without formal training. It's respected for some reason that isn't shown to us. This is a classic example of them telling us instead of showing us. And they're not even doing a good job of telling us. Who knows, maybe it's in the codex and I just didn't read it. Oh well, moving on to our next important character, and sometimes more important, our villain. And to be honest, I think he's written even weaker than Ryder. He literally says he wants to destroy everything you love. He goes on monologues about how puny and insignificant you are. How much more cliche can you get? Design-wise, Him along with the rest of the cat are so generic. Hey, pull basic, gray, bony, evil-looking sci-fi villain off the conveyor belt. There isn't a lot of variety but even between them. Hey, here's your enemy potato, and here's your enemy potato. Oh, no. Sure, they look the same, but trust me, they're different. Potato here has like 10 times the amount of health. But back to the Archon. When I think of good villains, I think of charisma. When I say charisma, I don't mean that they need to be likable or charming, but they need to be interesting. They need to leave an impact. The Joker has a lovable insanity to him, and also a duality with our hero Batman. Handsome Jack is charming in a psychotic kind of way, but he has a hilarious way of interacting with the characters. Dio Brando is a dynamic force of pure, undaunting evil, and he has a presence that is to be reckoned with. And he is just so over the top that he can't not make an impression. The Archon is so forgettable that I had to keep going on Google Images just to remember what he looked like. The Archon has the complexity of a Saints Row 4 villain, and that game is a comedy action game. Also, that game made fun of Mass Effect in multiple ways. The game literally ends like this. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I hold Mass Effect to a different standard than... Actually, talking about the cat really made me remember another gripe of mine. I really wanted to see new things explored here in this game. The Ket and Angara are beings all too possible within our own galaxy. Why? Why even set it in a new galaxy if you're gonna do this? Maybe make some aliens that don't sleep, but switch between two brains, giving the other a chance to rest. Imagine the legal ramifications behind having two different beings in one body. How about a race where their whole philosophy is to populate the galaxy, where their entire culture is around depleting worlds of resources? They were sent here by the Great One to use. The Great One put down these resources for them to use. They aren't here to conquer, they just want to spread. And if they see another culture that's advanced enough to use large amounts of resources, they respect that. I'm not saying I want these things exactly. These are just some random unfleshed out ideas I kind of threw together. But what I want is conflict. I want something that gives you something to think about. Oh, and speaking of things that give me nothing to think about, what about that plot? Did you get a little whiplash from that transition? Huh, looks like my script has more shocking developments than the plot of this game. It's the most straightforward, unchallenging, bland plot that I have sat through in a long while. Nothing about this plot surprises me. I'd put a spoiler warning here, but, there's not really anything to spoil. You come to Andromeda, you want to build colonies, the Ket want to stop you, and period. End of sentence. There's no story arc, it's a storyline. You go from point A to point B, they throw in some MacGuffins to prolong the meager story, and well, that's it. There's no intrigue, there's no mystery, there are no turns. I've seen more complexity on the back of a cereal box. Alright, maybe I'm being a little harsh. I'm just astounded at the weak story this game is bringing to the table. Don't try emotional pulls for characters I don't care about when the writing is this weak. And something about the premise really confuses me. So you go to Andromeda and you get there and surprise, the planet you looked at 600 years ago through a telescope was different by the time you got there? Go figure? Like, maybe they've got some special magic future telescopes, but if they're anything like the ones we have today, there's a problem. If you look up in the sky, most of the stars you're looking at don't even exist anymore because, well, light has to take time to travel. You travel enough away from the Earth, you could look around and see Pangea. Couple that with the fact that it took them 6 centuries to get there, why was anyone surprised it didn't look the same? That it wasn't their magic homeworld? My whole thought during this sequence was, why was no one awake during the trip? Like various teams awake at several points of the trip doing some kind of surveillance. Or I don't know, have the super intelligent AI keep an eye on these magic homeworlds. And then, hey, I see a problem, there's something colonizing there, let me wake some people up. A contingency plan of some sort. I don't know, the whole thing just doesn't seem very fleshed out. That, or it wasn't explained very well. It feels like there was more care put into the side missions of the earlier games than the main plot of this one. And, I mean, sure, there were plenty of side missions that didn't do much and just amounted to doing something like calling someone a big stupid jellyfish. But there were plenty that felt impactful, and at least it's not, hey, go to the place and scan the thing for me, writer. With these side missions, I'm not talking about impact on the grand scheme, but I'm talking about more on a personal level. I remember in Mass Effect 3, there was a girl waiting in the Citadel, waiting for her family. I remember walking by again and again, hoping for a positive resolution. I felt more impacted by a character I couldn't even interact with, compared to some of the ones in Mass Effect Andromeda. Not only did it have that juicy emotional pull, but it built up a world that felt lived in and not this hollow shell. Now, let's look at one of Mass Effect Andromeda's first big choices. I'll get into why that's so air quotey later. It's whether you decide to make your settlement one of science or of the military. And given how the last settlement was lost because of a Ket attack, the most obvious answer is to go military. So I decided to go science, and waited for them to fail, be destroyed, or at least take some sort of casualty. Now, this might not seem like much to you, but this is a big deal to me. On my first playthrough, I was purposefully sabotaging those I was supposed to help. When it comes to me playing this way, it says an incredible amount about the story. At my core, I'm a bleeding heart, and my playstyle tends to reflect that. I have a hard time being cruel to characters. Even to this day, when I attempt a renegade playthrough, I have a hard time being mean to my boo Liara, or my girl Tali, or even Trainer. Pretty much if you're a guy, get off my ship, you disgusting animal. Except for you, Garrus. Oh, and of course, you, Rex, and oh, and don't forget Legion. You're so cute with your little eye flaps, and hey, Joker's pretty cool, and I think you see what I mean by bleeding heart. I don't really want to see these characters suffer, and that's because of fantastic writing that built up these characters in a believable and relatable way. Andromeda dropped the ball so hard in this aspect that not only did I not care, but I was actively doing things to harm these characters. I was intentionally saying things to bother the characters, which actually brings me to my next point. The illusion of choice. That's why I put all those kind of air quotes around choices earlier. The game pretends over and over to give you important choices, but ultimately, nothing happens. So with a choice to make it a military or scientific base, well, I picked science and nothing happened. I never felt more upset at the success of a colony in my life. Come on, don't pretend that this matters. This is gonna tell everybody what we stand for in the galaxy. Blah, blah, blah. This writer, this is so important. It's so... Don't try to hype up something that's ultimately worthless. In most choices, at most, you annoy a character for the duration of the dialogue tree. In the original series, if you messed up at certain points, you would literally have to kill characters. You would have to kill them. But in this game, at 1 second it's, I don't like this very much, writer. And 2 seconds later it's, oh hey, writer, I'm hyped up for the next mission, buddy. I felt like I had no power here. And I'm not asking for, which character do I send to their Doom missions? I'm really not. I just want to make a difference. I'm a Pathfinder, which apparently is a big deal. Like I said earlier, I don't really know why, and doesn't really feel earned. But if I'm this big old Pathfinder thing, why don't any of my choices matter? Let's see. What's next on my list of gripes? Oh yeah, I'm not really crazy about the whole open world thing. It's done okay, but it's not really doing anything positive for this game. I think the linear nature of the older games led to a more focused story, and when you have to take a certain path to get to a goal, you can engineer all kinds of set pieces and plot points along the path. This kind of thing isn't possible in an open world, at least not to the same degree. Sure, the old games, they felt a little claustrophobic, especially around Korra's den, but that's a negative I'm willing to deal with, so that I don't have to put up with this empty feeling world. And another thing that threw me off was the user interface and menus. I thought the weapon upgrading was extremely unintuitive and confusing, and I also found the quest menus to be annoying. Also, why isn't the codex narrated? I hope you don't expect me to read this long-ass garbage. Oh, also, notice how I didn't mention the twin? Well, it's because I legitimately forgot about them until I was editing the script for this video. They have no impact or narrative weight, so I'm gonna give them the same treatment the game does and move on quickly. All in all, this wasn't really the worst game I've ever played, nor was it painfully terrible. It was just monotonous and such a departure from what made Mass Effect great. It breaks my heart to think that this could be what kills the series. At least until they want to profit off of nostalgia with remasters and remakes. And knowing who we're talking about, that's highly likely, along with the possibility of them just completely dropping the series just entirely. And I believe BioWare will become one of those missing kids if Anthem does not go well. And if Anthem does do well, well then that's their flagship, that's their main franchise. I don't think they'll put more money towards Mass Effect. I'd like to be optimistic, but with the evidence that's in front of me, it just becomes harder and harder.